Okay, so in the last video we talked about what you needed to do in order to be able to view these interactive translation folders from your computer. From here you're going to want to open the general interactive translation project folder. Do that first, and you should see something similar to this when you open it, unless more things get added or I change things around, in which case I'll try to update this video as well. Okay, so let me give you a brief overview of what you're looking at. There's a folder, depending on the way you sort this. The way I'm looking at it, the way it appears here, it might appear in a different order on your computer depending on how it's being sorted, but according to this picture you got the library folder on top, and that's the one we're going to be spending a lot of time on in this video. But that basically contains all the different books that are in this project to be translated. There's the data collection programming. Don't even worry about opening up that folder. That's just kind of administrative stuff happening behind the scenes, data exchange and all that. The other user data tool, we will need to be aware of this folder later. We're going to need to go in there and work with a file in there. User edits log, I'll talk about that later. And the word study database tool, I'll have a separate spreadsheet where I talk about all the different tools in this project. There is a newsfeed PDF update file in there. I think in the future, now that I've got this YouTube channel up and running, I'll probably just make a playlist called updates or special announcements, and I might end up doing away with that folder. And then at the bottom there's a folder called backups. You can just ignore that. Okay, so from here you want to go ahead and click on the library folder, the folder with the word library in the title. Once you're inside the library folder, you should see something similar to this. And again, let me give you a quick overview of what you're looking at. So I had initially, I guess I had instructions, PDF instructions in there that are pretty similar to these videos. But I didn't have time to make the videos yet, so they were just in PDF form. So I might be pulling those out, or maybe I'll leave them in there, I don't know. There's the terms and conditions for the interactive translation project in this folder for you to review if you want to. And the thing with the things with these terms they're totally not meant to limit the users of the ITP in any way. Like, it's just essentially there to try and make sure that this project stays free to all users, and no one kind of, I don't know, tries to come up with anything special that could lock it up or inhibit people's creative thoughts on how things should be translated or whatnot. And it's just essentially, I guess, there is a level of protection in there for me, because I'm going to be trying to do a lot of data exchange for people and keeping track of things, and if I am by no means a professional at doing that. Well, I do have some knowledge. I was able to set this up, but I can't be liable if I accidentally screw something up and lose everybody's data. Hopefully most of you will be able to forgive me if that ever happens, but just in case there are some people out there who would potentially sue, that's why that's in there. But again, it's not to limit people's freedom within this project. It's to protect that freedom, but also to protect me in case I mess something up. But anyway, there's another file in there called the user upload folder instructions. There'll be another video talking about user uploads. And then the next few files are the actual book files. These are the ones that you will be checking out of the library, so to speak. So you see Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and then below that there is one titled BK. So BK means book, but the one titled BKS, that's books, and that is a combination file that has Genesis through Deuteronomy in it. We will talk about the differences between those in a minute. There is a blank template for the user edits log. You can either grab that from here, or there'll be another folder that we saw a few minutes ago, one folder back. There will also be a blank template there for people to grab. Then there is a sample. So if you're curious, you can just go ahead and open that up right away and kind of see what the project looks like, and kind of what kind of data gets entered in, where it goes, what it typically might look like, just an example. And then at the bottom there is a Picto Hebrew file. This is going to come into play later. You'll need to remember that. We'll talk about that for getting the ancient Hebrew fonts onto your computer. Okay, so here's where things start to get a little trickier. So you're going to want to think of this folder as a library. It has different books, and you will need to check out these books just as if you were in a good old-fashioned library. And I'll explain this process directly. So please, again, notice that the book files in this library are in there as individual book files, but then there is also a combined book file. So we currently only have Genesis through Deuteronomy in this project, and I'll be turning my attention fully towards adding more books to this project once I finish putting out these initial new user tutorial videos. So please notice how there are individual files for each book, but then there is also a combined file that has all the books combined into one file. So let's talk about the differences between these individual book files and the combined book files for a minute. The combined Genesis through Deuteronomy file is quite large for an Excel file. So depending on what kind of computing power your machine has, your computer, your laptop, whatever, you might need to use the individual book files instead of the combined book files. For example, I have a couple computers at my disposal. One is a dual-core processor, and the other is an i5 processor. And these are the times it took to open the files. I think these are the times it took to open the combined file. It took 40 minutes with the dual core, and it took 15 minutes with the i5 processor. So to quickly summarize, if you have an i7 or an i8 processor, and actually I'm not even a computer expert, so maybe it's not even the processor that makes this faster. Maybe it's something else. One of you computer gurus out there can enlighten people as to what they need to be able to work with big Excel files more handily. But anyway, from what I can tell, a higher number processor is able to deal with these Excel files better. So if you have an i7 or an i8 processor, I would totally recommend that you focus on the combined book files only when you copy and paste book files from the library folder. But if you have less than an i5, you might need to pull the individual files instead of the combined file. Regardless of the computing power of your computer, let me explain why you might want to use the combined book files even if you only have access to a computer with a slower processor or whatever. Let me give you a couple things to think about. Okay, so I recommend using the bigger combined file if at all possible, even if you have to open it and just let it sit all day or all week. Because the thing is, it appears once you finally get the file open that the save time and other functions within the file is a pretty reasonable time. Either with something like a dual core or an i5 processor. So you might be able to just leave it open in the background, leave it open when you put your computer to sleep or in hibernation mode, just leave it open in the background. Anyway, the reason I recommend the bigger file is because, for example, there is an apply to all tool, and I'll have another video describing the functions of all of these tools later. But if you use that apply to all tool in one of the smaller individual book files, then you might have to make the same word translation edits multiple times for the number of different individual files you pulled from the library. So say, for example, if the word you are translating appears in multiple books, but if you had the larger file open, the combined file, it would apply all the changes to all the books at once. Again, I'll be coming out with another video explaining the apply to all tool, and there might even be a shortcut or two for getting around this individual versus combined file issue. So stay tuned. I am thinking about it. In any situation, there are other similar considerations to consider. But in general, please keep in mind that we are in the infancy stages of this project at the time that I'm making this video. So we'll be working hard to make sure things get better and easier for the interactive translation project users. So please be patient, and there will always be ways for users to provide feedback and suggestions, and hopefully we'll just make this thing better and better. Okay, anyway, once you decide on if you want to pull individual files or combined files from the library, what you need to do next is highlight those files, then copy those files, and finally paste those files into your own private Dropbox folder. So if you recall the picture we were looking at earlier where you were able to see the interactive translation project folders after you successfully joined the project, you would simply copy and paste your books from the library into this directory. So it should come out looking something like this. Say, for example, if you copy and pasted the combined book file. Important to note, you will want to make sure you are copy and pasting your files from the shared Dropbox folder to a personal private Dropbox folder. The point is you need to keep all these files on Dropbox so that you will be able to access them from the Dropbox app on your phone and other devices such as tablets. So when you copy and paste files from the library, don't put them on your desktop. Make sure you're putting them somewhere else on Dropbox, just not in the shared space of Dropbox because space is limited. Okay, so the last thing I'll mention at this point, you will want to go ahead and rename your user portal file or files, depending on if you took individual or combined book files. And make sure that the user number matches the user number that was assigned to you. You should see it in the email, one of those emails that came through, or I think that you were invited to 2 folders. One of those folders is going to say like upload in it, and it should have your user number there. So, for example, if you were user 31, it should look something similar to this. Okay, in the next couple of videos we will talk about what you need to do when you open your user portal files for the first time. So next I would recommend checking out the video titled Getting Started with the ITP Part 2, Adding the Ancient Hebrew Font to Your Computer and Dealing with Security Warnings. It should be the next video in this playlist. I'll try to also include a link in the description below in case you somehow found this video and you're not actually in the playlist, or you can find the playlist by going to the YouTube channel and clicking on the playlist tab.